Welcome back. Here we're going to do the exercise to see how we need to enter our transactions into our cash book. Okay, so in our instruction says the following transaction of Etosha traders took place during the month of January 2017. So what I like to do normally is I like to read through the transactions first and make small notes here and there to make my life a little bit easier. Okay, so we know that this is a transaction for Etosha traders. I'm going to highlight that. So we know that we need to write Etosha traders, and we know that it's a month for January 2017. And we're doing that. So we have highlighted this and highlighted that. Okay, then we're looking for the transactions for January. Remember, these dates are the dates of January. So on the 1st, the owner P. Paulus started a business with $50,000 in cash and issued receipt number 1. On the 2nd, he deposited $45,000 into the current bank account for the business. On the 3rd, he bought land and buildings and paid by EFT, proof of payment number 1 of $15,000. On the 5th, he paid trade license cash for $200. On the 8th, he purchased goods and paid by EFT, proof of payment number 2 for $3,000. Then we have on the 12th, cash sales of goods. So he sold something, $4,500 worth, as per cash register roll number CRR1. On the 16th, the owner took cash of $1,200 for his own use. Then we have on the 22nd, paid water and electricity by debit card, proof of payment 3 of $1,700. On the 25th, we paid cash insurance cash with $300. On the 30th, we have an EFT, proof of payment number 4, for $3,200, where we paid the salaries. On the 31st, received a debit card payment from a tenant for rent of part of the building, $500. Issued receipt number 2. Okay, so now we've read through the whole thing. Now we're going to make notes here and there. First of all, we're going to make notes of what is credit and what is debit. So right next to the transaction here, you take a pencil and you write debit or credit. So Paulus started a business, cash, $50,000 in cash, so that would be debit. Then deposited $4,500 in the current bank account, that would also be debit. Bought land, that would be credit. Paid trading license, that would be credit. Purchased goods, credit. Cash sales of goods, that would be debit. The owner took cash, that would be a credit. Our cash is decreasing. Paid water, credit. Paid insurance, credit. EFT for salaries, that would also be a credit. And then we received a debit card payment from a tenant, that would be a debit. We received something. So now we can see specifically what would be debit and what would be credit. Okay, so let's fill this into our cash book. We first need to put in our title. So whose cash book is this? This is for Etosha traders. So Etosha traders. What date was it? For January 2017. Okay, now we go to our first transaction. We know that's a debit, so we know on date it was on the 1st. The owner started a business with $50,000 in cash. Okay, so what happens? What do we call it when an owner deposits cash into a business? It is a capital transaction. So capital. Our document number is receipt 1. Is it a cash transaction or a bank transaction? He started with $50,000 cash, which means it should be a cash transaction of $50,000. Okay. Then we have number 2 on the 2nd. So it's also debit transaction. So we say on the 2nd, deposited $45,000 into the current bank account of the business. So what are we doing? We are depositing from cash because we have the cash here. There's the cash, but we need to deposit it from cash into the bank. So our details would be cash. And the bank would increase with $45,000. Now remember, this is now a contra transaction, meaning that we need to have a C here showing that we'll have the same transaction here as well as the same transaction there. So here we have the second, the date is the second, the details is bank, the folio is contra, which means it needs to link up with this transaction here. So you can see there, same transaction here is there. It's just this bank here and this cash there. And here the cash did decrease with $45,000. Okay, what would be our document number here? What does our transaction say? So there's no document number, but we know we need to have a document number, which means we can just say deposit slip. So DS for deposit slip on both sides. DS. Okay, and that's how we handle a deposit transaction. Okay, now we have our next transaction, which is a credit transaction, and that's where we're going to write the date here. So that's the third. So the third, bought land and buildings and paid EFT. So our document number would be POP1. So that would be POP1. And it would be, what did we buy? We bought land and buildings. We bought land and buildings. And how much did we buy it for? $15,000. How do we pay it? We paid it with EFT, which means from the bank, which means the bank decreased with $15,000. Okay. Then our next transaction is on the 5th. It's also a credit transaction. So let's start there. 5th. Okay. We paid a license, paid the trading license cash. Okay. So here we do not have any receipt number or any document number. So we need to leave that open. We're going to write here trading license. Trading license. Okay. And we're going to, how did we pay for the trading license? We paid cash, and that would be $200. Okay. Then on the 8th, we also have a credit transaction. 8th, what did we do? We purchased goods and paid EFT, so we paid by the bank. So our bank would decrease with $3,000. Bank would decrease with $3,000. Okay, and then what did we pay for? We paid for goods. So all we're going to do is purchase. We're just writing a purchase there, and it's decreasing with $3,000 because we bought something. Did we leave something out? Yes, we did. There is a reference number. Okay, so it's a document number, which means it's proof of payment to. Okay, then on the 12th. The 12th, we have a debit transaction. Okay, we're going to start there. Debit transaction on the 12th. We have cash sales of goods. Okay, so I see that I have a spelling mistake over there. Let me just fix it quickly. Cash sales of goods for $4,500 as per cash register roll number CRR1. So we're going to write our document number, which is CRR1. On the 12th, we have what? We have sales. So sales. How much did we sell? We sold 4,500 cash. Okay. Then we have another credit transaction here on the 16th. We say 16 over there. What did we do? The owner took cash of 1,200 for his own use. Okay, so what does that mean? What happens what do we call it when an owner takes money for his own use? We call it drawings. He drew money from the business. So that's drawings. Okay, and how much did he take? He took 1,200 cash. And that is why the cash is decreasing over here. Do we have a document number? No, we do not have a document number. There's no document number in this column. Okay, now let's look at number 2 on the next transaction on the 22nd. 22nd is a credit transaction, so it's 22nd. Paid water and electricity by debit card. POP number 3. There is a document number. So POP number 3. Okay, and how much is it? It is 1,700 on the debit card. So the bank will decrease with 1,700. What did we buy? We paid for water and electricity. You write it out. Electricity. Okay. Then we have on the 25th, again a credit transaction. So 25th, we paid for insurance cash. Sorry about that. So insurance. How much did we pay? $300 in cash. Okay. So then we have our second last transaction, which is on the 30th, also a credit transaction. We go to the credit side. EFT, proof of payment number 4 for salaries. Okay, so proof of payment number 4. What did we pay for? We paid for salaries. And how did we pay for it? We paid on EFT, which means our bank decreased with 3,200. Okay, then we have our last transaction, which is the 31st. It's a debit transaction, so let's go to the debit side. 31st. Received a debit card payment for a tenant for rent of part of a building, $500. Issued receipt number 2. So there we have receipt number 2. Receipt number 2. We are getting it for rent income. Rent income. Okay, and how much did we receive? We received $500 via debit card, which means our bank increases with $500. And that is how we do the transactions. Now to finish this off, we normally tend to add up all the columns, and they need to be able to balance out, and there's a Cashbook 4 and so forth, but we're not going to do that today. We're going to do this a little bit next time when we actually do the balancing off of Cashbooks. So at this moment, you just need to remember that you need to do the transactions, make sure they're on the right side, and make sure that you have your document number. You make sure that when we have deposits that we do it correctly with our contra folio number, and that is it. I hope you understand this, and I hope it was as easy for you as it was for me.